Sunrise, the fight for the conservative vote. Who is leading the charge with those voters who are not only to the right politically, they are devout and concerned about the future? We're taking a deep dive with Matt Schlapp.
And every parent's nightmare comes true as a child who was sent to daycare leaves in a body bag. A fentanyl overdose to blame, the crime, the victim, and the punishment ahead.
Plus, Joe Biden finally takes executive action for the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, 7 months after a toxic explosion nearly destroyed their town. Why some are saying it's too little and too late. All of that and more as American Sunrise starts right now. We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
And good morning and happy Friday to you. I'm Miranda Khan, coming to you live from West Palm Beach. My partner in crime, a.k.a. Dr. Gina Loudon, she is taking some time off. She's actually, I think she's trying to copycat after me. She went back up to the Midwest. Let's bring in, though, David Brody, who is joining us now in D.C. Good to see you, my friend.
Miranda, great to see you. Hey, I want some time off. Gina's taking some time off. You took a little bit of time off, well-deserved time off. Joe Biden has been taking time off for the last 3 years. But, you know, the person that never takes time off, Terrance Bates, in Denver with this morning's headlines. I try to make a transition every morning, Terrance, to you in Denver.
I like that transition, actually, David, but I'm going to be off for the next 2 days. I'll be taking some time off for the next. Oh, that's right. It's the weekend, so I guess I can't really say it's time off. Well, folks, we are down to 9 full calendar days until the government runs out of money, and House Republicans just can't seem to agree on a budget, much less all of the Democrats and Republicans in the House. Plus, lawmakers are leaving D.C. for the weekend, and the White House is reportedly telling all government agencies today to prepare for a shutdown on October 1st. Thursday, the Republican-led House failed for at least the second time this week to pass a motion to even debate an $886 billion defense spending bill. Again, 5 Republicans joined Democrats in opposing the measure, setting up the latest roadblock for Speaker McCarthy to move the party's funding agenda forward. While McCarthy says he plans to dig in and keep working, the current budget battle may also foreshadow the beginning of the end for the California Republicans' reign as Speaker. Later, hear from one Republican lawmaker who is putting McCarthy on notice. President Trump appears to be urging fellow Republicans to let the government shut down in order to throw a monkey wrench in the Department of Justice's various investigations against him. Taking to Truth Social, the 45th president writing, Republicans in Congress can and must defund all aspects of crooked Joe Biden's weaponized government. He goes on to say the current budget battle is, quote, the last chance to defund these political prosecutions against me and other patriots. Even with a lapse in funding, the cases against the former president likely would move forward. The Justice Department says activities funded by permanent, indefinite appropriations will continue even if there is a government shutdown. Now to an update on a story that we told you about yesterday involving a 1-year-old who died after being exposed to fentanyl at his daycare in Bronx, New York. Thursday, police were back at that daycare executing a search warrant when they found even more drugs. Investigators reportedly found a secret trap door compartment in the floor of the playroom there. The NYPD says inside that 4-by-6-foot compartment, officers found more fentanyl and other drugs totaling more than 5 kilos. A previous search turned up a kilo of fentanyl stored on top of play mats used by the children at that center, including this little beautiful boy here. Apart from this toddler who died, several other kids got sick from the drugs last week. 2 people, including the owner of the center, have now been arrested. More charges could be added in the 11 counts already against them. The duo faces murder and manslaughter charges along with criminal possession and endangering the welfare of a child. Coming up in about 20 minutes, Tara Dahl joins us to talk about lost voices of fentanyl. You definitely don't want to miss that. All right, let's get back to David and Miranda now. And guys, that story is just such a sad story. One of those stories that just makes you want to hug your own kids and pray for all those other kids.
Yeah, it is so devastating, and hopefully, we can make a difference. Looking forward again to your interview, David, with Tara Dahl. But now let's take a moment of faith. Let's look at our Bible verse from Jesus Calling today, and I think it's so appropriate given the State of the Union, if you will. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. And this comes from Corinthians 10:5. In news today, GOP presidential hopefuls made appearances at two conservative summits recently in D.C. Christians and Republicans gathered at the third annual Pray Vote Stand Summit, a national gathering of spiritually active conservatives. In another part of Washington, the Concerned Women for America Legislative Action Committee Summit, a group of women who protect and promote biblical values and constitutional principles, also met. All of those conservative leaders and voters say that they are fired up to take back the White House and America. Matt Schlapp is the head of CPAC, or also known as the Conservative Political Action Conference, again, the biggest political conservative conference in the country. And Matt has his finger on the pulse of conservative America, and he joins us live now here on American Sunrise. Good to see you.
Great to be with you again.
So, Matt, I have to ask you, what issue do you think is the number one issue facing conservatives during this particular political cycle, and which candidate at this time do you think is best equipped to handle, which is pretty much a monumental task at hand?
Well, it's really not about public policy, and that's where people get confused, because a generation ago it was about where you are in a whole series of very important issues to voters of faith. Today it's who's going to stand up to the bully. The bully is Merrick Garland. The bully is Christopher Wray, who says that Catholics, devout Catholics, are basically domestic terrorists, so it's okay to infiltrate churches. We had all the churches that were shut down during that panic over Chinese corona. Who will stand up to this bully and say, you can be a good American who follows the rules and a person of faith? Matter of fact, if you look at our founders believed that this nation was founded and imbued with Christianity and faith. And that was one of the reasons why so many of our forefathers and foremothers came here, because they wanted religious tolerance. So that's the number one issue for people of faith. Hey, government, back off. Leave me alone. Leave my kids alone. Don't teach my boy that he's a girl. Don't take my girls' sporting events away from them. Back off.
No, I think you're absolutely right, Matt. This is David Brody in D.C. Let me ask you a little bit about Mike Pence's comments recently, where he said populism is unmoored to conservative principles. And he says both will not survive. It has to be one or the other. What is your message to Mike Pence on that?
Well, if I wasn't very popular, I probably wouldn't like populism either. When you're in single digits in the polls, populism is very scary, because it seems like this big, powerful group. And in a democracy, numbers matter. And the fact is this: if conservatives think it's smart to whittle down our supporters, like Mike Pence is trying to do, to the point where it's just like this pure group that has these perfect positions on policies, but we're not connecting to the American people, welcome to irrelevance, being irrelevant. And that's what my message is to these people, which is, yes, I'm a strong conservative. I think conservatism, and polls show it, is the most dominant force in American politics. That being said, why wouldn't I want to add people who believe in the basic foundations of the fact that socialism is terrible for America and inconsistent with America? If those new populist voices, who maybe don't understand all the conservative positions on everything, but the general thrust of what we're facing, they get: leave our kids alone, hands off our schools, China, back off. We're not going to allow you to dominate our economy. Big tech should back off and quit censoring us. If they agree with us on those themes, I say jump aboard. You're welcome to come to CPAC. You're welcome to be part of this coalition. And these new voters Donald Trump has brought to the team, I like.
Well, speaking of CPAC, as you well know, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida wasn't at CPAC, and we've seen his poll numbers suffer dramatically, especially within the last few months. Do you think he's still relevant?
Yeah, I do. Look, he's been to CPAC for years and years. He came to our CPAC in Florida. He and I, at one time, had a really good, warm relationship. I used to see him in the Fox green room. Mercy and I saw him all the time. And, I just think the mistake he's made is he's become very remote as he took on this important job of being Florida's governor, where, by the way, he did a stellar job. He just lost touch with so many people who used to talk to him. And I think it's a big mistake when you get big jobs is you then you put all the security around you, and then you have underlings reach out to people, and your relationship tends to go toxic. And it's one of the things Donald Trump has done so well. I knew Donald Trump before he was president, and when nobody thought he could be president except Donald Trump. And obviously, we stayed close to him throughout all these tougher years. And during his years as president, Mercy worked for him. And he is the same guy. He still calls you back. I can call him on his cell phone, and 9 times out of 10, he picks up. And he has great stories, and he's always been there for us. So, I think that's the thing that Ron DeSantis screwed up on. It's not his policies. They're great. He's got great policies. I root him on. He did a great job as Florida. It's the fact that he doesn't seem to understand how our hearts work. That's where he's missing it.
When you say he doesn't understand how our hearts work, what do you mean exactly? You mean the connection? Because a lot of this is connection, making sure you can understand voters.
Well, you know this more than anyone, which is what conservatives and the base of the Republican and these conservative independents want is they do want someone who's good on the policy. But we're not having a policy debate in this primary. This is not what it's about. It's about how do we develop new strategies to fight big companies that are trying to cancel us. Banks are canceling people left and right who simply buy a firearm. How do you stand up to big tech? How do you defend your kids when if you go to these school board hearings, the parents might be the ones who get arrested? This is where we are. We're all pro-life. We're all pro-gun. We're all pro-First Amendment. But the question is, who's uniquely qualified to take on the fight? I think Donald Trump is, because of his age, which is a strength for him, because of his wealth, which is a strength for him, and because they have said every nasty thing they possibly can. This is the brave new world for conservatives.
Sure. If
you pop and become public and become effective, next thing you know, you're going to have a sex scandal. You're going to have a finance scandal. You're going to be the worst things are going to be said about you, starting with the Daily Beast and the Washington Post. Who can stand up to that? That's what we need in the White House.
Matt Schlapp, thank you so much for joining us here on American Sunrise. Greatly appreciate it. And for those of you watching at home, would love to know your thoughts about that. You can always share that with us by joining us on social media. American Sunrise continues in just a moment. We'll be right back.
back to American Sunrise. I'm Terrance Bates. It is now 15 minutes past the top of the hour. Well, maybe President Biden is tuning into American Sunrise because we, of course, have been covering the administration's inaction when it comes to taking care of the people of East Palestine following the toxic train derailment there some 7 months ago. Rav has been on the ground since shortly after that disaster. President Biden hadn't been there yet. Instead, though, the White House is now out with a press release saying Biden issues executive order to support Ohio town 7 months after toxic train derailment. A press release saying he supports it, not action saying he supports it. That release, by the way, says that Mr. Biden will send additional support to those impacted by the February 3rd train derailment. Residents and local authorities in East Palestine continue to criticize Biden for his response, and they're calling on the president to fulfill the promise he made in March to visit their community. Mr. Biden, if you're watching, remember this from September 2nd?
I said in March that you would go to East Palestine, Ohio. You came here. How come you haven't gone to East Palestine yet?
Well, I haven't had the occasion to go to East Palestine. There's a lot going on here, and I just haven't been able to break. I was thinking whether I'd go to East Palestine this week, but I then was reminded I've got to go literally around the world. I'm going from Washington to India to Vietnam and so it's going to be a while. But we're making sure that East Palestine has what they need materially in order to deal with their problems.
Miranda and David, we know that statement is bull, but we'll move on. And let me kind of ask a more rhetorical question here. Can we just say that all of what we're seeing from the Biden administration right now is just too little and too late? Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's probably a vast understatement. I mean, this is the forgotten America. You know, just remember, I mean, it was actually February 8th when they had that derailment. I mean, completely ignored it. And let's be honest, if 70% of the people there hadn't voted for Trump, he would have been there. He would have been there.
Yeah.
And then we also saw, which was even more interesting.
He has been there.
but Maui, we saw what happened in Maui, which is interesting because Maui's pretty blue, and he didn't show up there either. He was on a Bidenomics tour, that before he was taking vacation. He is just completely tone deaf.
Well, and this is all politics, and let's just be very clear that he had time to go to the beach and disturb all of us with a shirtless Joe Biden. He had time to fall off his bicycle. He had time to do a lot of different things. And so here's the issue. Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, asked for FEMA money, a request immediately after that. Now, in a press release, Terrance, as you're saying, that money may eventually, possibly, maybe happen 7 months later. Look, it should not surprise any of us that with a 2024 election and Joe Biden wanting to now appeal to blue-collar workers, he's now going to say something about the folks in East Palestine. I mean, come on, give me a break. We know what this is all about, and it's not going to work. People are smart enough to understand what's going on.
And Miranda, I'm curious, does this kind of add insult to injury, the fact that you don't go there to make the announcement, but you do it on a paper, you do it through a press release?
Yeah. Exactly. And the fact that he has spent, over 40% of his presidency on vacation, going back to David Brody's point. Yeah, I mean, don't sit there and tout yourself that you're all about climate change and saving the environment when you had a massive toxic spill there and you couldn't even take the time in the last 8 months to make one visit. It's BS, and real Americans
David,
that are watching this show know it.
Yeah, well, I'm an echo chamber. BS, 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 BS. That's a lot of B and a lot of S.
Or as I like to say, it's bull, and we'll move on. So when we return, Tara Dahl is going to be in our Washington, D.C. studio, and she's going to be talking about the dangers of fentanyl and how you can stand up against the scourge of this deadly drug.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. Hope your Friday morning is off to a good start. It is 22 minutes after the hour, and in a moment, former NCS official and current Real America's Voice contributor Tara Dahl is going to tell us about an event, a huge event that's happening in D.C. tomorrow morning that affects more Americans than you may realize, sadly, including your friends and neighbors. And that, of course, is the Lost Voices of Fentanyl. It will be a rally carried right here on Real America's Voice beginning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And I'm going to be a part of that event as well. Looking forward to it. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, we want to go to T. Bates, who is standing by with your latest headlines, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Miranda, a third IRS official, is now confirming that Delaware U.S. Attorney and Hunter Biden Special Counsel David Weiss faced roadblocks when trying to bring charges against the first son. During a closed-door meeting with the House Ways and Means Committee, IRS Director of Field Operations Michael Batdorf reportedly told committee members the Justice Department refused to approve tax charges that IRS agents considered well supported by evidence. The Washington Examiner just uncovered what it says is a transcript of that September 12th testimony. Agent Batdorf's testimony contradicts Attorney General Merrick Garland's claims before the House Judiciary Committee on Wednesday that Weiss had unfettered authority to pursue charges and evidence against the 53-year-old Biden. Vindicated Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is being talked about as a possible U.S. Senate candidate after beating an impeachment attempt over allegations of corruption. But until he makes his next political move, the Texas AG says he's going to continue investigating election fraud. Paxton saying that he believes there was fraud in the 2020 election, and he also believes that mail-in ballots were at the heart of it.
What I know from mail-in ballot, having fought this for the last election, winning 12 cases on mail-in ballots, that unfortunately other states like Georgia did not fight, I know that mail-in ballots are completely unreliable. If you just mail them out to everybody, you have no idea who's sending them back. There's no verification. When they say you can't prove voter fraud, they are right.
Speaking on Tucker Carlson's X show, Paxton says mail-in ballots are flawed because there's just no way to prove the ballot being sent in is in fact from the intended voter. As the Attorney General of border state, illegal immigration and fentanyl distribution associated with it are also major challenges for Attorney General Paxton. David Brody has more on the proliferation of that deadly drug now.
Thanks, Terrance. Yeah, we've heard for so long now about the fentanyl crisis here in America, and it's just disastrous and honestly ruinous for families left and right all across America, literally left and right. There's going to be a big event this weekend in Washington held at the Washington Monument. It's called Lost Voices of Fentanyl, and we've got a lot more on that with Real America's Voice over the weekend. There you see it, Saturday, 9:30 a.m. You're not going to see that on CNN. You won't see it on MSNBC. You will see it here on Real America's Voice. And joining me now is Tara Dahl, former Deputy Chief of Staff at the National Security Council and Real America's Voice contributor. That is a mouthful, but it is great to see you in person.
It is great to be here with you, David, in studio.
You are here for obviously a very important event. Tell us more about what we can expect tomorrow at the Washington Monument.
Yeah, families and mothers and fathers and loved ones are coming from all over the nation to the Capitol, to the nation's capital at the Washington Monument tomorrow, starting at 9:30 a.m. And they are coming to send a message to end this opioid epidemic. Mm-hmm. That is their message. They've lost loved ones from fentanyl, mainly fentanyl. But just keep in mind, so between April 2022 and April 2023, we lost 111,000 Americans from drug overdose. 70% of those are specifically from fentanyl. And this is something that these families are coming to raise awareness to. You'll hear from people like Tom Homan, former ICE director. You'll hear from Jason Jones, Mark Morgan, Sarah Carter, Border 911 leaders and speakers will be there. And then they'll be being escorted, police escort to the White House, and then to hold the rally at the White House, really raising awareness to this epidemic that it's affecting all Americans throughout the nation.
Well, I'm glad you said, because I did look at the schedule and I noticed that move over to the White House, because where is the Biden administration on this? And I've gone to the White House website, so to speak. I've read a couple of press releases, and it's all gobbledygook. I mean, you know, we're cracking down on fentanyl. We're doing this at the border and that at the border. But no, they're not. I mean, no, they're not. It's not making any difference whatsoever. And I'm wondering how you see the Biden administration as a culprit here, is their role in all of this.
Yeah, and a perfect example of it is just on Thursday, we had 10,000 migrants cross the southern border in one day. And so the open borders, they're coming with this message. These families are coming with the message that Biden's open border policies, the fentanyl losses is a direct result of that. And you have to secure the border. And that's where this fentanyl is coming in. That's what the cartels are working with. The cartels are bringing it in. And the chemical precursors are coming from China, and they're working with the cartels. But so this is kind of like China's unrestricted warfare. It is also the cartels' warfare against the American people. It is the largest cause of death, the number one cause of death for ages 18 to 49 as drug overdose is fentanyl. So that is 18 to 49. It's the number one cause of death in America. It's caused more deaths than all the terrorist attacks combined. So it is an epidemic, and these families are coming here. They're trying to raise awareness and call on the Biden White House to do more to crack down on the fentanyl, because what's happening is a lot of it isn't there. It's poisoning, right? It can be laced. Like you can have Percocet, it's laced. I was talking to a family. I heard the story of a family who they were just drinking a bottle of water, and their daughter was killed because of that, because it had fentanyl in it. So, we were just Terrance was talking about the story of the daycare center where they lost the 1-year-old boy. So this is just these incidents are happening more and more throughout our nations, and it is a crisis. And the Biden administration is not doing enough to crack down on the fentanyl crisis that we have. And securing the border is the number one thing that they can do. And going after the labs. They have to target the labs, and they have to target the cartels.
When you say the labs, where are these labs specifically? Because they're in a lot of different places, right? Help me out a little bit on that.
The labs are in Mexico. And
specifically in Mexico, you're talking about.
Specifically in Mexico, and they're working with the cartels, mainly the Sinaloa cartel. But the chemical precursors are coming from China. And that's where the DEA has been really trying to target these chemical precursor manufacturing companies that are coming out of China. But the cartels have been able to work around China and are now working with chemical precursor manufacturing companies in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. So they're able to work around China. So you can't just focus on China. It's the cartels and the labs that they really need to crack down on.
Here's one of my biggest frustrations, and I've got a lot with the Biden administration, but Biden talks so much about being this morality guy, right? This morality in chief type guy. And yet we have this going on with fentanyl, whether it be the drug cartels or China, and he has a bully pulpit to speak out, and he does not do so. And it's shameful. And I wonder about this rally tomorrow, how hopefully it won't be too political. I mean, that what I just said is very political, but it really isn't if you think about it. I mean, it should be a bipartisan issue here.
Oh, absolutely bipartisan. It's affecting everybody throughout America. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, if you're independent. It doesn't matter. Our families are being impacted. Every family, no matter where they are. So it's a huge issue for Americans. It's a huge issue for this Biden administration, and they are silent on it.
Tara Dahl, thank you.
Thank you,
Good
David.
to see you. An important issue, and you'll be back here, obviously, throughout the show. So looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you, David.
All right, thanks. All right, when we come back, a lot more to talk about, including one mom's fight for justice. After her son was murdered, a mother's now on a mission to ensure equal justice for all, not just for the woke. We're right back with her story.
Of us. We don't give a damn about your politics. We
Well,
don't care.
that was Nat sound.
It could be the man from the moon who's running for president. Okay? As long as whoever's in there, it stands for law and order.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. It is 33 minutes past the hour, and let's be honest, we all fear cognitive decline as we age, and Biden certainly isn't helping matters. And it can't be stopped. But there are ways that we can slow it down. So take a look at this headline: Boost brain health and slow mental aging with 10 intriguing tips from longevity experts. So a Florida neurosurgeon shared some tips for slowing down your brain's natural aging process. These are great. So the number one tip, love this: exercise regularly. He explained that the communication between your brain and muscles during exercise can actually strengthen your nerve cells and benefit memory centers. And here are the rest of the tips. Take a look. Get plenty of mental stimulation is number two. Activities like reading, learning a new language or instrument, playing challenging games, and making arts and crafts. Eating well and getting enough sleep are in the top 5. And for some good news, engaging socially and drinking caffeine are in the top 10. I love all of these. We can all do this, right? Everyone knows, though, that the next medical crisis is just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of a pandemic or something much more mundane like a tick bite. But you and your family need to be prepared. And that is where the Wellness Company comes in. You know the Wellness Company. They have some incredible doctors. You've seen them here on this network, like Dr. Peter McCullough. The Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals that you can trust, and their new medical emergency kits are, they are the gold standard, right, when it comes to keeping you and your family safe and healthy. So be ready for anything. Give yourself that peace of mind. This medical emergency kit contains just an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin and a Z-Pak. They also have a guidebook so they can walk you through everything you need to know. They have emergency antibiotics, anything you can think of. Just go to twc.health/voice today and place your order. Again, that's twc.health/RAV, and use that promo code RAV, and guess what? You're going to save yourself 10%. All right, time now to head back over to Denver with the one, the only T. Bates is standing by. Good to see you.
Miranda, always good to see you. Listen to this headline because it really has Democrats a little shook this morning, as they like to say in New York. Mom of slain Army vet seeks GOP nod to topple Representative Jamal Bowman. Here's the backstory. Madeline Brame became a crime victims advocate after her son, Hassan Correa, was beaten and stabbed to death during a scuffle outside of a Harlem apartment building in 2018. He was 35 years old at the time, a married father of 3, and a veteran of the war in Afghanistan. There's his picture with his family. Madeline, a self-proclaimed lifelong Democrat, says initially she was confident that her son's murderers would be brought to justice. But the case lingered in court until 2022 when Alvin Bragg was elected and then took over as district attorney. Brame believes that the 4 siblings who were arrested in the case only got slaps on the wrist by being charged with murder and gang assault. And that, of course, led to where we are. After witnessing what she now also believes is a 2-tier justice system and hearing big talk and small actions from Democrats, Brame took matters into her own hands and switched parties, becoming a Republican. She is now running for Congress against incumbent New York Congressman Jamal Bowman. Her platform focused squarely on the Democrats' soft on crime policies. Madeline Brame joins us now to tell her own story. Ms. Brame, good morning to you, and thanks so much for being here.
Good morning to you as well, and thank you so much for having me.
So I want to start by allowing you to tell your own story. I set it up, but please tell it.
Well, as you said, Hassan was murdered in 2018 in Harlem by 4 people he didn't know, nor had he done them any harm. Hassan was stabbed 9 times. He died at the scene from a fatal stab wound to his heart. Hassan's father was also stabbed 12 times by these same people when he tried to come to Hassan's aid. He was unresponsive when EMS arrived, but they were able to revive him. All 4 of these people were apprehended, charged with first-degree gang assault, second-degree murder. This is when the old school hardcore district attorneys were running Manhattan under the leadership of Cyrus Vance. They built a strong trial-ready murder case that was marked for trial from day one. There were never any plea deals, any question. This entire incident was captured on video. So it was basically an open and shut gang assault and murder case against all four. Alvin Bragg came in at 2020. He was handed this strong trial-ready murder case. The original district attorney retired early, as so many of them did when Alvin Bragg came into office because of his day one memo that he would not be prosecuting crime. Prosecutors have been working on cases for a few years, especially murder cases, and they built strong cases that were ready. He dismissed the murder and gang assault indictments against two other people involved, Mary Saunders and Travis Stewart. He gave Mary Saunders 14 months time served, and he also gave Travis Stewart 7 years. He also gave the actual stabber a plea deal of 20 years. He didn't even go to trial.
Miss Brame, I'm sorry to cut you off, but as I'm listening to your story, I'm wondering, is it just Alvin Bragg, in your opinion, who has failed, or is this system flawed right now?
It's the entire apparatus. The entire prosecutor's offices throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City. Darcel Clark, Melinda Katz, the district attorney of Brooklyn, they all are playing to the same playbook, the restorative justice, the soft on crime policies. This is why we see such a drastic rise in crime and people committing crime being arrested and released right from the precinct. They're not even making it in front of a judge or the prosecutor's office for formal charges to be brought against them. They're giving desk appearance tickets, and most of them don't even return to court on their next court date. I've sat in that courtroom for 5 years. I've sat there for 5 years, and I saw defendants being brought in from the detective squad with 6 or 7 open warrants, all right, all on new charges, and released again that same day.
So you are running now for Congress. You're running for Congress now to change the system from inside. But I've got to ask you, running as a Republican in Uptown, in Harlem, you know, the heart of democracy, the heart of Democrat leadership, how big of a mountain do you have to climb?
Well, it will be a heavy lift, but if you think about it, right, Black people have been voting Democrat for generations only because that's what we are told to vote. But at the end of the day, we have conservative core values. We believe in God, we believe in nuclear family, and we believe in country. We also, the majority of us believe if you want to eat, you work. All right, so a lot of us don't agree with what's going on. We didn't vote for it, and if we did vote for it, we didn't understand what we were voting for. We were just continuing to vote the way we normally do. But I think because of the current atmosphere and the current environment that is man-made and created, you know, these policies that are put in place, they're crashing straight into the Black and brown communities and like a runaway train. And our communities are being decimated. Crime is runaway. You know, there are no protections, no provisions. They defunded our police. Nobody asked for that. That's not what anyone signed up for. You know, we had no idea. This word salad that they're using, diversity, inclusion. What's the other words that they're using? There's like 4 different words, like buzzwords. No one knows what that stuff means. All right, it sounds exotic, it sounds fancy, but at the end of the day, no one understands what it means legislatively. All right. So,
Madeline Brame, I'm sorry we've got to go, but you're talking lots of common sense, and so the word salad, you're going to help make sense of it. We appreciate you being here with us this morning. Thanks so much for sharing your story.
Please go to my Win Red Brain for Congress. That's Win Red Brain for Congress. Hit that donate button. Please help bring me over the line. Please help me financially and support my campaign. Thank you. And that's New York 16. That's New York 16. Thank you.
I appreciate you being here with us this morning. You, of course, honor your son's legacy with your advocacy. Staying in New York now, though, and switching to D&D, that would be David and David. Let's start off with David Brody.
Thank you, Terrance. That was powerful and passionate, by the way, that interview. This is the D squared portion of the show. David Brody, I like to talk in the third person. My ego approves. And David Zier, the host of Breaking Point, Breakaway. What am I talking about? Breaking Point. Talking about book bans and pornography this weekend. Wait a minute. Hold on. That's a tease. David Zier, tell me more. I'm intrigued. Well, not intrigued with book bans and pornography, but I mean intrigued about the story subjects. David Zier.
Well, we love Madeline. I spoke with her. With her at a victims' rights thing in New York. She's really on fire here. But there's been a string of recent victories for parental rights in California and Temecula, Orange County, Escondido, and Chino Hills. And I sat down with Pastor Jack Hibbs, who's been like a one-man wrecking ball, along with members of the Calvary Chapel. They're making big progress here, and a federal judge ruled along with 2 teachers in the Escondido School District that the school has to release information to the parents about the gender and transgender decisions of their children. And the California Department of Education comes out and says somehow the parents are the threat and not the schools about the kids' safety. And it's so ridiculous what's happened. But Pastor Hibbs has inspired others to run. Madison Minor had a 221 vote victory in Orange County after seeing Pastor Hibbs talk at the Calvary Chapel. He's been an inspiration. And the school boards in Chino Hills and Temecula, one of them passed a Pledge of Allegiance guideline that you have to be quiet at least during the Pledge of Allegiance, and that no flag could be flown except for the U.S. flag in the school district. In Downers Grove, Illinois, Congressman Sean Casten had a book banning roundtable after Pritzker signed this law that they're going to lose funding if you ban books in the libraries. But Terry Newsom, who I speak to a lot, I just spoke with him the other day, he parked himself in front of Sean Casten, Congressman Casten, who's a Democrat, at that roundtable with placards showing graphic images from the book Gender Queer. And Casten got all flustered and inadvertently admitted that it was offensive material, similar to what John Kennedy did the week before last at the hearings when he was reading passages from All Boys Are Blue and Gender Queer in front of the Illinois Secretary of State. So it's really crazy, but it's timely because Merrick Garland is under fire. He apparently authorized the FBI to investigate parents and parents groups as domestic terrorists. And in summary, he may have helped write the letter from the National School Board Association to the president. 5 days later, the feds authorized an investigation into the parents. But I spoke with Karen England the other day from the Capital Resource Institute. You got to go to takebacktheclassroom.com. They started a database that got 8 states, all the schools so far of all the books in the libraries of those schools in those 8 states. You're not going to believe it, that level pornographic material.
20 seconds, David, breaking point. Tell us more where everybody can catch it. I know a lot of diehards know, but just in case people are tuning in.
Tomorrow morning, I got Vince Everett Ellison. He's a black pastor, activist. He's on fire about the situation in the city, and the blacks have to leave the Democratic Party. I got Christina Bobb on there. I got Jovan Pulitzer on election fraud issues and what to expect. So check it out, 8 a.m. Saturday Eastern.
David Zier, great to see you, sir. Thanks so much. All right, when we come back, more on the show, including our Stay Awake, Not Woke segment. That sounds like Joe Biden. Hey, Joe, stay awake, not woke. Back in a moment.
Smell the coffee right now. You know what that means. It's time for Stay Awake, Not Woke, again, sponsored by our good friends over at Beer Vet Coffee. BeerVet.com is the website to check out, and use that promo code RAV for 10% off. And, no BS, BS aside, I promise you, there's no BS. Everyone says it's the best coffee they've ever had. All right, so here is our woke story. Despite Tommy Tuberville's months-long fight to block woke military nomination, today's headlines tells us there's little he could do to remove woke policy from the Defense Department while Biden remains in office. Take a look at this. Senate voted to confirm Biden's Joint Chief of Staff nominee who hires for diversity. To get past Tuberville's block, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer forced a full Senate vote on Charles C.Q. Brown, an Air Force general known for his comments on mandating diversity throughout the military. Now, Brown was approved by the Senate by a vote of 83 to 11. And then yesterday, we saw this headline. Senate finally confirms Marine Corps Army top officers after bypassing Tuberville hold. So the Senate overwhelmingly voted to confirm Biden's nominations for the Chief of the Army and Marine Corps Commandment. Another workaround to Tuberville's block? That's what we're seeing over and over again. I want to welcome back in Terrance as well as David. It's so disheartening to see, Terrance, when, COVID happened and those mandates and those military personnel are not being allowed back, those who, made that commitment, and that the main focus right now, well, we're seeing this massive invasion that's been taking place, something that we've never seen in our lifetime at our southern border. And this is our main focus, is diversity.
And to that point, these confirmation hearings, obviously, Senator Tuberville's hold on all of these generals and some of these people looking for promotions is something that I've been covering and have spoken with him directly about. And he has told me personally that he was okay with each of these individual people who have been nominated being voted on individually, not just kind of as a block in the whole. And if we look at the numbers, 83 senators voted for this chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which means there are a lot of Republicans who crossed the aisle and voted for this. So let's keep that in mind. Let's not just say, oh, the Democrats pushed this through. 83, that's a clear majority of Senate members who voted for this new chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and many of them Republicans. Hold them accountable if you have an issue with it.
Go ahead.
I'm glad you said that, Terrance, because I brought the list with me this morning in terms of the ones that actually voted against the nomination. These are the folks that the Republicans that said, no, we're not going to deal with this diversity stuff and a lot of other stuff going on with him. Senator Ted Cruz said no. Hawley said no. Mike Lee, Roger Marshall, Eric Schmidt, of course, Tommy Tuberville, and J.D. Vance. And am I missing anybody? No, I think that's everybody. Mike Braun as well. So we should just point those folks out. Those are the ones who stood and said, no, we're not going to go along with this. And I think it's important to name names. And in this case, it's a good thing. The names I'm naming are folks that stood up for this.
Yeah, and to go back to your point, Terrance, real quickly, yes, there were Republicans, but some of them in name only. Let's not forget Mitch McConnell, not exactly a MAGA candidate.
Mr. Ukraine.
Yes,
I was going to say
Ukraine.
something smart, Alec, about Mitch McConnell, but it probably wasn't in good taste, so I'll keep it to myself.
All right. Thanks, guys. Love to know what our viewers think.
I'll do the right thing.
A lot of comments about the interview that you did with Mrs. Brame, so I'm looking forward to sharing some of those hopefully a little bit later. But up next, it is our Yom Kippur moment of faith. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. Welcome back to American Sunrise. We're about 5 minutes until the top of the hour, and it's time now for a moment of faith. This Sunday at sundown, Jewish people all around the world will begin this solemn holiday of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. It is considered the high holiday and the most intense when it comes to the Jewish calendar. Here with details to share this moment of faith is Rabbi Mark Wilds of the Manhattan Jewish Experience, and welcome to American Sunrise. A pleasure to have you.
It is an honor and pleasure to be here. Happy holiday to everyone.
Happy holiday as well. Our producer, David Brown, he's like, I will not be available, so don't even try calling. I will not check my phone. I will not text. This is a huge holiday for us. But for people who aren't familiar with the Jewish faith, explain a little bit about what this holiday means to you personally.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. So Yom Kippur is considered the Day of Atonement. The word Kippur in Hebrew is from the word kapara, or atonement. And it's really the day, it's really a spiritual cleansing, an opportunity to sort of make amends, both with our fellow human being and with God, and to take the day to reflect on the last year and ask ourselves some honest questions. Where could I have done a little better? How could I improve myself in the coming year, both in my relationship with God and with my fellow human being? So Yom Kippur is a very solemn, sobering day. We fast. We disengage, in a sense, from a lot of the physical things that we're used to every day in our lives to be able to connect really with something higher. But it's supposed to also be used as an opportunity to really forge forward in a much more positive way for the coming year.
When we look at our day and age now, that can be so difficult for some people. We're constantly multitasking, looking at our phone, watching TV, you name it. But it is important that we disconnect. So for people who struggle with that, what message do you have for them?
So I'm a big advocate of what we call in Hebrew Shabbat, or the Sabbath. And it's something that Judaism has brought to the world. You know, Christians have a Sabbath on Sunday, Muslims have one on Friday, Jews on Saturday. It's incredibly important, especially today in our social media driven technological, time, that we shut things down, that we take one day where we can have better quality time with each other. Our kids can tell when we are looking at them, when we're focused on them, or when we have one eye on the phone and one eye on them. And our relationships are suffering as a result. So it really behooves all Americans, all people, to take a day every week and just recharge by disconnecting. Because when you disconnect, it allows us to really connect with something higher and to have better relationships with each other and ultimately with God.
Rabbi, thank you so much for joining us here. Happy New Year, and have an easy fast.
Thank you.
And may it help you better connect with God.
Amen. Thank you, and God bless you all.
God bless you as well. And may you be scribed in the book of life for another year. We'll be right back in a moment for the second hour of American Sunrise. We'll be right back. Dinesh D'Souza's latest film, Police State, resembles a way of life for some families in our United States. He's here to talk about the ways things may become for us all.
And talk about a parent's nightmare. A New York couple drops their kid off at daycare only to have him returned in a body bag due to exposure to fentanyl. The crime, the victim, and the punishment ahead.
And Tara Dahl is here talking about a big event coming up this weekend in D.C., Lost Voices of Fentanyl. We have more on our second hour American Sunrise, which starts right now.
We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning. Happy Friday to you. It is September the 22nd. Can you believe it? And it is 9 o'clock. Welcome to Hour 2 of American Sunrise. I'm Miranda Khan. Dr. Gina Loudon has the day off. We want to welcome in now David Brody, who joins us live in D.C., where there's going to be a big event happening tomorrow. You're going to talk more about it a little bit later on in the show. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are. We have Tara Dahl here. We'll talk about that in mere moments, and we'll talk about it throughout the rest of the show. Also, I'm excited for the Dinesh D'Souza interview later on Police State. That should be interesting. By the way, I believe the FBI is now at the front door. I've got to go. I think they're coming after me.
We laugh about it.
That's not the FBI.
We laugh about it, but they really could.
They really could. And it's a warning for all of us. More on that later in this hour. First, though, Terrance Bates in Denver. T. Bates with the headlines. Terrance?
Oh, there's breaking news here. Watch list David Brody, FBI. Oh, wow. Okay, David. Well, you just called it. Let's get real, though. The ongoing budget battle in Washington isn't just putting the country dangerously close to another government shutdown. It's also putting Republican against Republican. Thursday, the Republican-led House failed for at least the second time this week to pass a motion to even debate an $886 billion defense spending bill. Again, 5 Republicans joined Democrats in opposing that measure. Plus, many Republicans are still furious with Speaker Kevin McCarthy for brokering a spending deal that's about $120 billion more than they want to spend. Now it looks like McCarthy has about a week and a half to try and save his job as Speaker.
You've given McCarthy a shot, and you're prepared to team with Gates and these other patriots and move on a motion to vacate that McCarthy has shown that he gamed the system and he lost?
Absolutely. That's not even a question. If he gives in now, he gave in on the debt ceiling. Why do you think we did what we did? I'm the one who voted against the rule that defeated the DOD on the floor, and I'll do it again. But absolutely, it's a teachable moment.
While some Republicans are prepared to let the government shut down, others are pushing a short-term funding bill that would set spending levels at about $1.471 trillion per year. Representative Norman says that he backs a 1-month-long continuing resolution, but if no acceptable deal is reached by then, he says he's willing to let a shutdown happen. Suspected government plant Ray Epps pleads guilty to a misdemeanor charge of disorderly conduct on restricted property. This for his part in the protests and subsequent riot on January 6th. Epps has been accused of being a secret government agent who incited violence at the U.S. Capitol that day. The former Marine and ex-member of the Oath Keepers even sued Fox News for defamation, saying that the network spread the baseless claims against him, which led to death threats. During a hearing on Wednesday, prosecutors claimed that Epps was not a confidential source for the FBI or any other law enforcement agency. He's scheduled to be sentenced on December 20th. The charge carries up to a year behind bars. And it is back to court for Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake and her legal team. This as she and her legal team fight to review ballot return envelopes and signatures of about 1.3 million Maricopa County voters. It's Lake's third trial after 2 unsuccessful lawsuits challenging her narrow 2022 election loss to current Governor Katie Hobbs. Lake claims that she lost due to fraud and misconduct by election officials. At issue in this current trial is whether election return envelopes from the last election are public record. Lake and her legal team want access to those documents as they argue in a previous case that there was misconduct during ballot signature verification in Maricopa County. The first day of testimony was on Thursday. A second day is scheduled for Monday. That's a quick check of your headlines. Now, let's get you back to David Brody in the nation's capital.
Terrance, appreciate it. And Miranda, hello there.
Hello.
Look, the fentanyl crisis is obviously a huge issue in America. It's more than an issue. It's just literally is a crisis. And we've been developing and giving a lot of time to this issue. And well, we should. There is a big event this weekend in Denver, in D.C. It's called the Lost Voices of Fentanyl. And there you see it there. Real America's Voice will be covering it 9:30 a.m. Saturday Eastern Time. Families who have lost loved ones to the fentanyl crisis will be there and marching to the White House. Joining me now with more, Tara Dahl, former Deputy Chief of Staff at the National Security Council and also a Real America's Voice contributor. Tara, we had you here in the first hour talking about this, and it's such a problem, and it ties directly to the border, clearly. And I know we talked about the China connection to the Mexican drug cartels and all of that. And then we have Karine Jean-Pierre from the White House podium yesterday saying that Joe Biden has done more to fight the immigration problem than any president. What is she talking about? I mean, they really think we're stupid.
Yeah, and then she was blaming it on the Republicans because they have not done anything. I mean, she's just sitting up there at the podium at the White House lying to the American people. The Biden administration pulled back all of Trump's policies on day one. They stopped the border wall. They quit remain in Mexico. They rescinded Title 42. They are allowing all of these migrants to come through the southwest border. They're tying the hands of the Border Patrol agents so they can't do their job. They've turned the Border Patrol into a humanitarian organization instead of law enforcement. The morale in our law enforcement officers is at an all-time low. And so we're seeing the consequences of Biden's open border policies with the amount of fentanyl and the deaths now that are coming in, or the cause of it is because of Biden's open border policies. And he's going easy on China too. And so we have to look at, when we look at fentanyl, we have to look at the cartels. What is the Biden administration doing to hold accountable the cartels? What is the Biden administration doing to hold China accountable for what they're doing as well? And so it's the Biden administration is 100% responsible, and then she goes out and she just lies. It's unbelievable,
Yeah,
really.
for sure. Miranda Khan there in West Palm Beach, I know you've got a question. Tara Dahl here in D.C., so feel free. Go ahead.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I know this is the third annual march that they're doing in D.C., and I'm going to be hosting that coverage along with you when you're on the ground there. And this isn't really supposed to be a political event, if you will, but what can our viewers expect to see? Again, we're going to have live coverage beginning at 9:30 in the morning, because the last time I heard, there's been enough fentanyl seized in this country to kill every American 7 times over.
Yeah, Miranda, it does not take a lot of fentanyl at all. And a lot of these, the family members that have been lost, it's been poisoning. It's been where they didn't know that it was fentanyl. It was laced, another drug that was laced with fentanyl. And so, like just with the 1-year-old that was killed at the daycare center, that was just because there was fentanyl at the daycare center. So a lot of this is just the poisoning that's happening. And it's just in such high demand here, and it's so available. And it's really, this started in 2015 when it was crossing the border. That's when we really saw it, when the cartels started to see that the market was changed. And so this is kind of a new crisis, the fentanyl now, that's a 70% of the overall drug overdoses. So it's the number one, fentanyl is the number one leading cause of death between Americans 18 to 49. It used to be 18 to 45. And now it's to 49 years old.
Yeah, Terrance, go ahead. You've got a question.
Tara, always good to see you. There's been so much made of the federal government's failure when it comes to immigration policies that have incited this crisis when it comes to fentanyl. But what responsibility do states have also to fight back and to stand up against fentanyl and then, by extension, illegal immigration?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Texas is an exact example of that, what Texas is doing to stop on their own. They're spending billions of dollars to be able to stop the illegal immigration at the border, and they're being constantly hit with federal lawsuits from the Biden administration for everything that they're trying to do on their own to be able to protect the Texans and the American people in Texas, their own population. So states really have an opportunity to be able to take it into their own hands and do what they can do.
You know, I think what's really interesting here is that when I was kind of growing up, and the whole thing with heroin, right? Heroin was the big deal, but fentanyl is what 50 times stronger than heroin. So we're dealing with a whole different beast here, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it is so deadly. It doesn't take a lot.
Like you were saying about the water, right?
The water, yeah. Or like Percocet laced in fentanyl. It doesn't take a lot, and it's a poisoning. Instead of people being addicted to it, it's a lot of poisoning where they're not knowing that it's happening. They don't realize it. And that's what's so scary about it, is because how do you counter it when you're not aware that it's there?
Yeah.
And so there's an organization called Border 911, and Tom Homan, the former ICE director, Jason Jones, Mark Morgan, Sarah Carter, a lot of these key speakers who have served in administrations served many years. They're starting an organization called Border 911, and they're going to be going throughout the United States and talking about it, and they're going to be here on Saturday. These key speakers will be here on Saturday telling Americans what they can do to counter fentanyl and to be able to help to secure the border.
Very nice. All right, we'll see you a little bit. Lost Voices of Fentanyl right here on Real America's Voice, 9:30 a.m. Saturday morning. Check it out. We're back to drain the swamp. Don't worry, Tara and I will still be here. They're not going to drain us, but we'll drain the swamp in a moment.
It's 15 minutes past the hour, and this segment, of course, is sponsored by Sea of Mud. SeaofMud.com is a website to check out and use the promo code RAV1776, and you're going to save yourself not 10, but 15% off. They're just a rural, all-around good American patriotic company. Everything is made in America. They share many of the same values that you have with you and your family. And they have more than just these awesome t-shirts, which definitely are talkers. I love them. But they also have knives, and they have drinkware, and they have swimwear, and my personal favorite, jewelry. Big fan. All right, even Biden's loyal city dwelling voters know that the New York immigration crisis is a matter of emergency. When I say immigration crisis, I mean illegal immigration crisis. But does Biden know how to handle it? Well, based on his visit to the city this week, he doesn't even know how to address it. Big shocker, I know. So check out this headline. Turned a blind eye, doesn't he always? Biden ignores migrant crisis during trip to New York City. And again, I'd call it a legal immigration crisis, but reports show the president ignored the issue at an event with the governor. That, of course, is Governor Hochul. He also failed to honor a meeting with Democratic Mayor Eric Adams to discuss his concerns. Remember, he's been very vocal about it. First, he was all for sanctuary cities, he even tweeted about it. And now he's like, this is a mess. We can't handle it. So Biden instead addressed world leaders at a United Nations reception. Go figures. He discussed his favorite, China, Russia, and climate change. But he neglected to mention the illegal immigration crisis on the world stage. New York City Councilman Robert Holden said, quote, despite mingling with the entire world, he just turned a blind eye to New Yorkers. A misstep this city will long remember. And we'll have more on that, I'm sure, throughout the week. But I want to welcome back David Brody and Terrance Bates. I should sit there and say I'm shocked, David, but I'm not shocked at all. Yeah. I mean, we just talked about it earlier in the program. It's been well over 8 months. He hasn't gone to East Palestine, and he didn't make that promise until, what, a month later after the event actually happened there with the train derailment. He completely ignored Maui, in fact, was on vacation. Then he went to do a Bidenomics tour. I mean, this guy is tone deaf on every single situation.
Well, yeah, not only tone deaf, but like on immigration specifically, he doesn't want to talk about it. And then a logical follow-up question is, why doesn't he want to talk about it? Well, that's like me talking about healthy eating. I don't have much to say on it. Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is that if he is literally going to, tout an immigration policy that has no teeth, why would you talk about it? I mean, there have been 3 million illegal immigrants into this country, at least, at a minimum, on Joe Biden's watch. So that's why he's not talking about it, because he has no record to stand on, Terrance.
But, yeah.
David, you make a wonderful point. I think that is fundamental because we're talking about the world stage. Immigration and migration, which is a term that's being used, is a global issue. Europe is overrun with migrants coming right now from Africa and from other countries. We're talking about deadly passages into Europe. It is a global issue, but the fact that the world's leading democracy and the leader thereof doesn't even want to talk about the issue, I think speaks to exactly what you said. He realizes that his policies are failing, and so in one of the cities that's dealing with this issue, he failed to actually talk about an issue that is a global issue on the world stage at the United Nations.
David, you used to live in New York City. You've brought it up several times. I don't even recognize this city. When I look at some of the video shots, and it's not just New York City, but Texas as well, they look like third world countries. I think the bigger issue I have is, do you think the mayor is going to hold his feet to the fire and actually say something?
Well, I don't think so at all. I mean, at this point, he's kind of, I'll just say it, he's kind of screwed. I mean, in other words, he married into this Biden administration sanctuary city stuff, and so now he has to live with the results.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to know what our viewers think about that. I know Governor Hochul has just simply requested that the Biden administration send more of your tax dollars to help solve the problem. We're going to share some of your voices coming up. We still have much more to come here. You're watching American Sunrise on this Friday, September 22nd. We'll be right back. Grab your cup of coffee. Join us.
What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
minutes past the top of the hour. Starting next month, about 28 million borrowers will have to start repaying their student loans. Those payments were put on hold in 2020 due to the pandemic. Interest on federal student loans restarted earlier this month, and millions of borrowers will be sending their checks or online payments to different loan servicers than the last time that they made their payments. Plus, the Biden administration is encouraging eligible borrowers to apply to the government's new income-driven repayment plan, which was launched back in August. The SAVE plan, as it's called, is billed as a means of reducing monthly payments and the amount that's paid back over time. All right, let's check back in with David and Miranda. They've got more headlines coming your way as well.
Thanks, Terrance. Look, it's every parent's worst nightmare. You send your child off to daycare, they don't come back. They've died, and this time of a fentanyl overdose. We've been talking about what happened at that Bronx daycare center. 2 people have been now arrested and charged in the death of a 1-year-old who was exposed to fentanyl that was on a sleeping mat at this daycare center. 3 other children were hospitalized after being exposed to the drug that was allegedly being processed at the site in the Bronx. Police said they found a kilogram of fentanyl in a hallway closet at the daycare, stacked on top of children's play mats. They also said they found 3-kilo press machines, which are used to package drugs. And the 2 people arrested in this death of Nicholas Dominici at the daycare facility in New York are now facing federal charges, and they carry a range of 20 years to life in prison. Authorities say they found enough fentanyl to kill 500,000 people. What in the world? Miranda, we're joined now by Frank Tarantino, Special Agent in Charge, DEA. Frank, I say thanks for being here. I'll be honest with you. We wouldn't want to have you on the show, but we need to have you on the show because of what's happening. Help us sift through this horrible, tragic situation, Frank.
Well, first off, this is the most urgent threat that's facing our civilians, our citizens, our families, and our kids right now is fentanyl. Fentanyl is the most urgent threat and most dangerous threat on the illicit drug market today. It's killing the most people. 80% of the overdose deaths and poisonings in New York are related to fentanyl. So fentanyl, a synthetic man-made drug, is highly lethal, highly addicting, very cheap, easily accessible, and the cartels are mixing it into drugs like cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and making them look like fake pills like Xanax, Oxycontin, Adderall, and other types of illicit drugs that people are taking and then becoming addicted in or overdosing and dying. In this case, we're calling them poisonings because oftentimes these people do not know what they're ingesting. They think they're buying cocaine. In fact, they're buying cocaine laced with fentanyl.
But it could be something as easy as an antacid, where people, it's not an illicit drug. But Frank, let me ask you here, what do you think is the #1 cause for the dramatic increase in fentanyl in this country? And I think I know what the answer is. But more importantly, what's the best way to combat it?
So this is all starting with China and India, with the precursor chemicals that are flowing from those 2 countries into Mexico. And then in these super labs, in these jungles in Mexico, they're being synthesized into fentanyl powder and fentanyl pills that are flowing into the United States in record amounts. Those fentanyl pills and powder are ending up here in New York City. And that's what is driving the overdose deaths and poisonings in the United States. So if you look at the numbers, we're talking about catastrophic record numbers. We're talking about 110,684 people that died in 2022. We're talking about 1 person dying every 5 minutes in the United States. We're talking about 303 to 305 people dying every single day in the United States. I used to say this was the equivalent of a 737 crashing every day in the United States, but it's actually more than that. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, what are we doing about it? Now, the DEA is committed to saving lives. They're committed to doing more, and we're working with our state and local counterparts to do exactly that.
But Frank, the problem is it's everywhere. It's not just the drug cartel. Well, it is the drug cartels, but it's the money laundering networks. It's China. It's everywhere. The labs in Mexico. So where do you begin? How do you combat this? Because if someone tells me it's about money and resources, that's great, but that's not the final answer here. What needs to happen?
So this unspeakable and unconscionable tragedy is unfortunately playing out across the United States every day. What makes this tragedy even more significant and more impactful is that it's a young person, and that should never happen. As you said in your lead-in, you drop your child off at a daycare, you drop your child off with a responsible adult, and you expect to retrieve them at the end of the day in the same condition you left them off in. What I will tell you is the DEA's number one priority is to defeat the two cartels, and we're doing that by focusing on the entire supply chain. And we're going to take out the entire network. So we're mapping that network right now. We're understanding where they are in the United States, where they are in a global space. We're understanding who their facilitators and who their middlemen and organizers are, who's supplying who, and then we're going to take that network out in its entirety. And that's a different approach that DEA has taken from in the past.
Real quickly, what can and we only have 30 seconds, but real quickly, what can viewers do right now? Because that's so alarming to hear that it's the number one killer for people between the ages of 18 and 49. What can we do to help?
So this is part of DEA's second priority, which is to elevate and educate as many people as possible with the dangers that involve fentanyl. We're trying to get out with our one pill can kill message. We're trying to get out into the community and share this devastating story. And we have the Faces of Fentanyl wall in our DC office, at our headquarters in DC. And this is why we do what we do. We're out there every single day to try to save lives and to make a difference. And educating the American public on these dangers is part of that process.
Frank Tarantino, thanks for being here, and thank you so much for your service in this very crucial area. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for helping us get the message out.
Yeah, you bet. Look, the fact that this is laced in so many different places and areas and substances has got to alarm every single one of us, and we've got to be on our toes and diligent, and hopefully we have an administration that's not doing a darn thing, in essence, and we have to hope that there'll be some sort of future help here along the way from a government perspective, but we'll see, depending on what Trump and everybody does in 2024. All right, time to go to the opening bell, sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Well, David, you hear the opening bell. The markets on Wall Street are now open, and it looks like so far so good. The Dow actually down just a hair. S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both in the green right now, which is good news. And the good news is that the futures were trading pretty positively this morning as well. Meantime, it is deadline day as the United Auto Workers Union is expected to go through with its threat to expand the current strike to more plants. Thursday, UAW members once again rallied against Detroit's top three automakers as there appears to be little progress in talks between General Motors, Ford, Stellantis, and UAW. The standoff is fueling concerns about prolonged work stoppages that could disrupt production of cars and have a ripple effect throughout the supply chain. Plus, there's the larger issue of the impact this strike might have on the larger U.S. economy. Right now, nearly 13,000 of UAW's 146,000 members are off the job. If the union follows through on its threat, even more will walk off the job today, affecting even more plants across the country. Vladimir Putin called the U.S. dollar's drop in dominance, quote, objective and irreversible during the recent BRICS summit in South Africa. This is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa formally agreed to use local currencies instead of the U.S. dollar. As demand for the dollar weakens, the buying power of the dollar also weakens, and that's why the Birch Gold Group is busier than ever these days. Investors and savers are looking to harness the power of physical gold that's held in a tax-sheltered IRA. Text the word America to the number 989898 for your free information kit on gold from the Birch Gold Group. With thousands of satisfied customers, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and countless 5-star reviews, you can count on the Birch Gold Group to help you navigate transitioning an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. As the U.S. dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign countries, digital currency, and central banks, you may want to arm yourself with information on how to protect your savings, and you can do so by texting the word America to the number 989898 and claiming your free information kit on gold from the Birch Gold Group. We're going to take a break. When we come back, 2024 is getting saucy. We've got the latest dish on the upcoming election. We're back in a moment.
its finest. It's red, white, and blue. Gotta get out and try it. Red State Barbecue. Red State Barbecue.
Time to giddy up. This is always a time of the show where we all get very hungry because we love barbecue here. This has been, of course, sponsored by Red State Barbecue. RedStateBarbecue.com is a website to check out. You really want to do it. Your taste buds will thank you for it. Use that promo code RAB10 and you're going to save yourself 10% off. And here's the good news. They have a brand new apple bourbon sauce. You can grab, though, their classic flavors, Memphis sweet, Texas spicy. They have North Carolina and South Carolina local barbecue sauce flavors, even an Alabama and a Kentucky style barbecue sauce. RedStateBarbecue.com. Use that promo code RAB10 for 10% off. Still waiting for that Kansas City one. All right, the national scoreboard for the GOP presidential nomination has been updated, and while Trump is rising, no big shocker, DeSantis, well, he's tanking. Here's a headline. Oil and Gas Workers Association with 47,000 members endorses Trump in 2024 in a blow to DeSantis. Get this, this happened on the day that he unveiled his energy plan in Texas, which apparently not many people showed up. DeSantis flew to Midland, Texas this week, to unveil his plan. But after hearing it, well, the Oil and Gas Workers Association threw their weight behind Trump. The association's president said, quote, Governor DeSantis says a lot of the right things, but his track record isn't there. Meanwhile, look at this. DeSantis dropped to 5th place in the latest New Hampshire polling. This is pretty bad because he was in 4th place just 1 week ago. And if you think that's bad, well, he lost more than 75% of his original support just since mid-January. That's a massive decline from 43% to 10% in this state.
We honor you, Father, for all that you've done for us.
Chief Division Counsel and DOJ have approved a no-knock breach. We want the subject to be on display, doing the walk of shame, full visual impact. Any questions?
Are we becoming a police state?
Government told American citizens they couldn't go to church on Sunday.
For the first time in my life, I'm saying to myself, am I going to get a knock at the door?
FBI warrant, come to the door now!
The Patriot Act and FISA were used against Donald Trump.
These individuals have commissioned the biggest propaganda play in U.S. history.
They don't go after the people that rigged the election. They go after the people that want to find out what the hell happened.
We don't need to have a crime. What we need is a person to look at. And then we go find out what crime you did.
FBI! Our focus is shifting. Our main priority as a bureau is going to be domestic terrorism.
It really paints anybody who's right of center.
If you're a pro-life, pro-family Catholic, they define you as radical.
These are anti-government.
We have freedom of religion and freedom of speech.
Violent extremists, and they must be dealt with. We can do anything we want.
Police State, the new documentary movie by Dinesh D'Souza, and it just scared the living bejesus out of me. It's powerful, it's harrowing, it should scare every single American, and Dinesh D'Souza is joining us now live here on American Sunrise. Dinesh, I don't even know what to say. This is not a time to run and hide, that's for sure. It's a time to be bold and fight. Tell us more about this, Dinesh.
Well, the backdrop for this is simply the big question of, is America moving in the direction of becoming a police state? Now, part of that, of course, is the police agencies of government and their abuse of power. But if you think of the things that define a police state, it's things like widespread surveillance, mass censorship, political prisoners, the attempt to create a one-party state, subversion of elections, political targeting. So all these things which traditionally have defined unfree societies abroad, North Korea, China, the old Soviet Union, all of these things are now right here in America. And it's not just Trump, it's not just January 6th, it affects a whole bunch of American citizens, maybe half the country. And so this is a movie that blows the whistle and blows the lid off of all of this.
So, Dinesh, what are we supposed to make of the implications of this going forward? If indeed we are a police state, and if it continues to get worse by the day, where does that leave America in a year, 5 years, 10 years?
Well, it means that we have, one of the ironies of the whole thing is that sometimes when I talk to people on the left, they agree that America is becoming a police state, but they think we're doing it. They go, oh, yeah, we're becoming a police state because of Trump. We're becoming a police state because Republicans are trying to take away our freedoms, abortion and trans rights and so on. So the odd question here that's examined in this movie is, well, who is running this police state? Who's behind it? How does it work? And so we go into the bowels of it. We have all kinds of insiders, whistleblowers, and also people who give firsthand testimony of how they're affected by the police state. So this is I view it almost like an animal that's kind of giving a warning to the rest of the herd that the whole herd is in danger.
Dinesh, tell us more about when it comes out, where people can see it, but also I'm curious about what their ultimate motive here is. Is this about changing America for good? Is it about dismantling America? Is it about power? Is it about money? What is all of the worldview? What is all of this about ultimately?
Every police state has a ruling class, and the ruling class gets to live like the aristocrats of old and lord it over the rest of the citizens. Typically, ideology is just a justification for doing that. So this is about power. It is about control. It is about dependency. It is about subjugation. And ironically, it's all done in the name of protecting democracy and fighting disinformation. And so and also upholding the rule of law. No one is above the law except them. So this is a case where the end game ultimately is that the people who are building the police state are using the left and using the Democratic Party to create a tyrannical regime in the United States. And that is, I find it odd to say, but that is not an overstatement of what's happening right now.
For sure. Dinesh, I have a little less than a minute left. Let me get you on a quick news of the day question. Biden and this impeachment inquiry by the House. Do you think ultimately the House writ large overall will have the backbone to potentially impeach Biden? What do you think?
I think yes. I think that the House is becoming more emboldened. They've moved pretty cautiously so far. In fact, I think they should have begun this inquiry even earlier. But it looks like they're tying all the things together. If I can say one thing about the movie, there's only one way to get tickets, David, and that is to go to the website policestatefilm.net. We've bought out hundreds of theaters. It's showing October 23rd and 25th. policestatefilm.net is where you get the tickets.
Very nice. I'm glad you brought that up, and there it is on the screen. Please go there. Dinesh, always great to see you. Thanks so very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. Police state. My goodness gracious. Terrance Bates, now in Denver. To you.
David, great conversation there with Dinesh D'Souza. Well, folks, it's one of my favorite times of the week. That's when we head down to Atlanta, otherwise known as Hotlanta, and get a dose of cowboy logic from our good friend and Real America's Voice host, Donna Fiducia. Donna, always good to see you. A pleasure. And I have to tell you, Donna, I was in our Getter chat earlier. A lot of people buzzing about this upcoming barn party that you and Don apparently are hosting. Tell us more about that and what else you have coming up here on Cowboy Logic this weekend.
Well, the folks in the chat know the barn party as the 9 p.m. Saturday night Rav show of Cowboy Logic. And boy, we're getting tons and tons of views, and we do appreciate it. And of course, Cowboy Logic is on Rav every weekend at 6 a.m. on Saturday, and 9 p.m. on Saturday, and again at 4 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. So I was going to ask you guys, what do Hunter Biden and Ray Epps have in common? A slap on the wrist.
I don't know. It sounds almost like, I was going to say, it sounds almost like a punchline. Go ahead. Slap on the wrist. I like it. Yes, ma'am.
Slap on the exist. I mean, and it's ironic that you had Dinesh D'Souza just on, because his movie 2,000 Mules with the facial recognition technology is still being used to pick up the Jan 6ers. They're almost at 1,200 at this point, although they say, well, the movie doesn't pick up any problems with mules. That's not right, but we'll use it for that technology, except for the bomber. And, well, okay, now we'll throw a minor charge at Ray Epps. So let me give you a little bit more. We here on Cowboy Logic really do pride ourselves in trying to help the Jan 6ers and their families. There was a guy named Ryan Samsel with Ray Epps. He's in the white hoodie and a red MAGA hat. He's been in prison now almost 3 years. He is finally going to trial later on this year, I believe. But again, he was right next to Ray Epps. So I'm going to take this a little bit wider and say, gee, what if Ray Epps comes back and he gets a plea deal for talking about Ryan Samsel to throw Ryan under the bus? That's just what, going forward, what we're thinking about. Because he might get Ray Epps a year in prison when some of these guys have been in prison almost 3 years with no trial. It's pathetic. We've also had Landon Copeland on, who has admitted Antifa, and he said he knew of 250 people, his Antifa folks, that were there that day, and possibly as many as 2,500. So maybe he ought to talk to Merrick Garland, because Garland has no idea, even though he runs the DOJ, how many Antifa and BLM and agitators in general were there on January 6th. I would venture to say it's thousands. And there's close to a 100% conviction rate also, which is ridiculous with what's going on, because D.C. is just a swamp. They're totally out of control.
Donna, you are on fire, and folks, if you want to hear more of that fire, tune into Cowboy Logic starting tomorrow, and then you can go to the barn party on Sunday. See, and I thought my invitation got lost in the mail. Aha, I see what you did there, though, Donna. Donna Fiducia, once again, Donna and her husband, Don, Cowboy Logic, make sure you tune in. Up next, it's time to spill some tea, and ahead in the cup, the man who brews it just right. If you're scratching your head, don't even worry about it. We'll explain ahead on American Sunrise.
Freedom-loving patriots are falling in love with America's barbecue sauce, Red State Barbecue. Red State's 8 different sauces are perfect for whatever sparks your barbecue palate. Visit redstatebbq.com. That's redstatebbq.com and use promo code RAV10 for 10% off.
Red State Barbecue.
Let's spill some tea.
And we're almost 10 minutes until the top of the hour. Welcome back to American Sunrise. Of course, this segment is sponsored by our good friends over at Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTeaCo.com is the website to check out. Again, use that promo code RAV. You're going to save yourself 10%. And Artillery Tea, it is all natural. It is whole leaf. The tea bags are chemical free, and each tea bag can be used twice, and in some cases even more so. Artillery Tea Company is family and veteran owned and operated. Just a good all-around old-fashioned American company, and a portion of your purchase, you're going to love this, actually goes to help veteran and first responder charities. ArtilleryTeaCo.com, again, is that website. Use that promo code RAV and save yourself 10%. Time now to spill some tea, and up in the cup, Hollywood actor John Cusack. Cusack has some pretty strong opinions about Democratic elites, and he's not holding back anymore. I mean, look at this headline. John Cusack blasts so-called corporate Democrats, says that they, quote, sold out the working class for decades. The conversation began with a social media post from a left-wing magazine, which focused on some Democrats' efforts, to outlaw, easy for me to say, a federal wealth tax. So Cusack chimed in with a lengthy post on X in which he called out Democratic elites for selling out, again, the middle class, writing this, quote, they have played a major part in creating the precise conditions for fascism and flourish. Man, having a hard time talking today. He accused them for, quote, brutal, selfish, horrific actions one only does because they can get away with it. We don't have time to share the rest of his diatribe. Well, just say it was harsh and not necessarily wrong. I mean, I always did kind of like him back in the 80s. Joining us now to talk about this more is Artillery Tea itself, is the man behind the product, I should say, the founder and CEO of Artillery Tea, Mike Britton. Nice to have you back on American Sunrise. I know you've been a little under the weather, and myself too, but you know the best remedy for that, as we know, is your tea. And I mean that. I've never smelled tea that smells so fresh. And I love what you're all about, your story and how you go to help people. But I want to just get your reaction. We'll go more into what your company is, but your reaction to John Cusack.
Yeah, well, I think he's right, of course. The Democrats, I think they're the party that is in it for themselves. And of course, some of the Republicans are too, as we all know. But, you know, the Democrats are really the ones that have sold out the working party, like he said. So I definitely agree with what he's saying. I don't know about the rise of fascism there. I'm not really sure what he's referencing, unless he's referencing the Democrats themselves,
yes,
you know, as the rise of fascism. That I would understand. But yeah, so I definitely agree.
Now, no pun intended, because I know this is part of the Spill the Tea segment, but do you think that more and more people in Hollywood, or those who used to claim that they were kind of on the left, are going to wake up and realize that the Democratic Party is not the same party that it used to be, and it's actually fighting against everything that America, frankly, has stood for since its founding?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I sure hope so. The further they go left, I hope more and more people come out. And I heard somebody say this once, that if you don't know where a celebrity lands politically, then they're probably more conservative or more Republican. So I hope more and more people start to realize that and speak out.
Well, let's hope so. And if they need to wake up, well, like I said, they need to check out your tea. And we are big tea drinkers here, as you know. And I just love the whole story about your tea and what you're all about. We only have about 30 seconds remaining in this segment, but what would you like our viewers to know about your company in particular, and why they should go to you versus the generics that they see at the grocery store?
Sure. So this is our product here. We made it as American as we possibly could, right? So tea is a little bit like coffee. It doesn't grow too well in the United States. So the tea itself is grown all in the India and Sri Lanka region, but we have aluminum tins, we have labels, we have stickers, we have even the tea bags and the string and tag that are all made in the U.S. We're a family-owned company. We work with several nonprofits that help veterans and first responders, and every sale that we make goes to helping them too. We work with 2 nonprofits right now specifically that help veterans with emergency expenditures like groceries and utilities and things, and another nonprofit that does helps the families of fallen first responders. So we appreciate all the support we've gotten so far.
And we appreciate you being a sponsor here at Real America's Voice. And I know a lot of viewers want to make sure that their money is going towards products and companies that support their morals, their values, and that's what Artillery Tea Company is all about. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you again, and I hope you get well. We're both on the men's, but we're going to get there, my friend. All right, coming up, we'll tell you about an event coming up right here on Real America's Voice. That is, of course, the Lost Voices of Fentanyl. More details coming up when we return.
Tired of the same old mass-produced, globalist-supporting tea companies? Artillery Tea Company is the Patriot source of natural premium tea. Visit artillerytco.com and use promo code RAD for 10% off.
Washington, D.C., the home of a big event tomorrow, actually. The Lost Voices of Fentanyl. We've been talking about it. There it is on the screen all morning long. 9:30 a.m. Saturday morning at the Washington Monument. Tara Dahl here with us, Real America's Voice contributor. It's a big event. Give people a summary again about what's going to happen.
Yeah, 9:30. Join us here at Real America's Voice. We'll be covering the event throughout the day. They're going to have speakers such as Tom Homan, Jason Jones, Sarah Carter. A lot of the families that are coming from across the nation are coming in to raise awareness to the #1 leading cause of death for Americans between 18 and 49 years old that's impacting Americans and children, all families throughout the nation. And they're going to end it by having a police escort to the White House to really raise awareness to what's going on.
Well, Tara, appreciate you being here. Good to see you, by the way,
good
in
to
person.
see you.
We'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk on the airways somewhere. Somehow, some way, we will.
Yes.
All right, thanks again.
Thanks, David.
So, Miranda, Terrance, that about does it from here. We've got a lot more, though, on Monday. I guess we're going to be here unless we're not. No, we'll be here on Monday.
We'll be here.
I plan on being here.
We'll be here, and I'm looking forward to that coverage tomorrow with Terrance. I'm going to be our Terrance. Tara, woo! Rough morning Friday. Can't even get the words out of my mouth. But yes, I'm going to be covering that along with Tara Dahl. And looking forward to seeing all your beautiful faces again Monday. Yeah, it's gonna be good. Good weekend plan, Terrance?
Absolutely. Big weekend plan. I'll be watching your coverage tomorrow. And folks, make sure you also tune in for that barn party that Donna Fiducia was telling us about on Cowboy Logic. That's going to be Sunday evening.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. Again, War Room with Steve Bannon is up next. And we're going to see all your beautiful faces 8 o'clock a.m. Monday morning Eastern Time. Have a great weekend.
See ya.